here and I'll be going up to Skytubes in like a minute or two, so see you up there.
Alright, you know what? Pause. How do we get from something like this to something like this? Exactly. This doesn't make any sense, especially considering 2.0. Now, again, this doesn't make any sense, especially because if you would really think about it, you would expect the Skytubes back then to be a lot smaller, and nowadays for them to be a lot bigger and more futuristic looking. But no, instead we have the opposite. Back then, in the 90s and 80s, we used to have the big Skytubes, as you saw in that video. And all of a sudden, now, we don't even have Skytubes anymore. They were just downsized, and all of a sudden, now, they're just non-existent. Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about the history and the rise and the fall of the Skytubes in the Chuck E. Cheese locations. But first, let's rewind all the way back to the 70s, when Chuck E. Cheese first opened and was in its Pizza Time theater era.
This is the place for you and your friends. This is the place where the party never ends. It's the good time place, everyone agrees. When you're hungry for fun, it's Chuck E. Cheese. Chuck E. Cheese, Chuck E. Cheese. When you're hungry for fun, it's Chuck E. Cheese. It's the good time place that's sure to please. When you're hungry for fun, it's Chuck E. Cheese. When you're hungry for fun, it's Chuck E. Cheese.
Did any of you guys catch that? Hold on, let me rewind that clip for a second. Now that right there, what it says, Tinker Towers, that is the very beginning and the inspiration of the Chuck E. Cheese's Skytubes. Now, let me clarify for a second. These were all the way back in the 70s, and let me zoom in on that image for a second. Now, right there, you see those two towers right there? They're both yellow and kind of like not very colorful and not very stood out a little bit. But that right there is the very inspiration all the way back in the 70s for the Skytubes. Now, the Tinker Towers were two really yellow and big and tall Skytubes, or like towers. And in between both of those towers is like one big yellow tube for the kids to climb through. And it was very small tube, like a pretty small tube. But yeah, that tube right there that you could see in the middle of both of them, the kids could like climb through it. And that was that one tube in between those both is the inspiration behind the Skytubes all the way back 20 years later. Alright, so now you know that. Now you know how we got the inspiration for the Skytubes. Now we're going to go all the way and zoom all the way into the future to the 90s.
Looking for a little excitement? Let me give you a tip. Chuck E. Cheese's. Here, kid. Have a token. Thanks, Mr. Big. The pizza is hot, and so are the games. Win all sorts of crazy prizes. Jackpot! I got my dad a new car. My mom some fancy jewelry. Ooh, lovely. Hey, Chuck E. baby! I love showbiz. Chuck E. Cheese's, where the action is.
Alright, so as you saw in that video, you could kind of notice how the Skytubes were in the background of most of that ad. So that ad aired in the 90s, and this was around the time when the Skytubes were already made and were already being put into locations and were pretty common. So basically, the Skytubes were conceived by Showbiz Pizza Thai Inc. At the time when Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza was under fierce competition from Discovery Zone. Now, Discovery Zone was basically, I'll make another video on Discovery Zone, but basically Discovery Zone was a big place where instead of playing games, it was mainly about playing in like big play areas and big tubes, and that's what all you would do. There were no arcade or anything. It was just all about playing in tubes and trying to get like active, I guess. And yeah, so Chuck E. Cheese was starting to lose business from Discovery Zone, so Chuck E. Cheese went ahead to join to try and compete with Discovery Zone and make more people come to Chuck E. Cheese. So they added the Skytubes. And the first Skytube installations were made in the early 90s. And that was around the time when Showbiz Pizza was in the process of shutting down to make more way for the opening of more Chuck E. Cheese locations. And many of which took places of old Showbiz locations. And this move was like very, very successful, almost overly successful, because it was partially aided by a much younger looking and child-friendly incarnation of the Chucky mascot, and the pizza tag being ripped from the name as a part of a nationwide rebranding to Chuck E. Cheese's in 1995. So basically, in 1995, Chuck E. Cheese got rid of the Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Phase 2 logo and replaced with Phase 3, which is just called Chuck E. Cheese's. And Discovery Zone, probably because of the Skytube success, began to lose customers to Chuck E. Cheese's, which ultimately, encountering financial difficulties, Discovery Zone filed for bankruptcy in 1998. So Chuck E. Cheese won against the war against Discovery Zone. So the Skytubes were a big part of Chuck E. Cheese's, because without the Skytubes, Chuck E. Cheese's probably would have gone bankrupt, if I'm thinking about it. So by 1998, Discovery Zone filed for bankruptcy, and Chuck E. Cheese actually bought them out and acquired their locations. And in 1999, Chuck E. Cheese shut down their U.S. locations to make good for another wave of Chuck E. Cheese locations. And yeah, so now we're going to go all the way to the 2000s. And from the 2000s on, this is when the Skytubes started to get phased out. But eventually something crazy happens, and they might come back all of a sudden again.
Parents' idea of a great game? Your idea. Their idea of a cool video? Your idea. How parents eat pizza. How you eat pizza. Chuck E. Cheese's, the real cool place to be a kid. Parents don't have to get it. They just have to help get you there.
Alright, so by this time in the 2000s, the Skytubes had become one of Chuck E. Cheese's main selling points, and they were adding it a lot. And also what was cool is that in 2006, they made a board game on the Skytubes. Here's an image, you can see it. It looks pretty cool, actually. So yeah. So by the late 2000s, it was discovered that the Skytubes had very long and serious issues that CEC Entertainment had to deal with. They were very rare, but they were very widely publicized, making people think that they're very common problems. So there are some incidents of adults and teenagers becoming trapped inside of the tubes. And one such incident made a location have fire and rescue services to be deployed. But on one of the concept's biggest flaws, staff could not go up and easily do cleaning work on the Skytubes, which led the Skytubes interior in some locations to look very dirty and very gross on the inside. They might have smelt bad. They might have been day-old pizza in there that's just been left to rot in those Skytubes that kids have brought up. So very gross. So by that time, it led to serious general hygiene issues inside of the Skytubes at actually most locations. So some staff members also warned their managers of cleaning troubles in the ball pits attached to the exit to the Skytubes. So because of that, CEC Entertainment responded to decline the install of these Skytubes in new locations. A select few location managers just decided to remove them all and their accompanying ball pits. So they just decided to get rid of it, the whole thing, and their ball pits. So actually what's interesting is that the last Chuck E. Cheese's television commercial to show the tubes in any capacity was in 2012. So that confirmed that the Skytubes were being phased out, and a number of locations resisted the removal of their Skytubes. So now, when a new owner took control of Chuck E. Cheese's, sorry, and was the new CEO in June 2016. He claimed that the Skytubes still had for use, and he planned to use their expanded staff base and newly appointed dedicated cleaning teams to address the problems of hygiene issues inside of the tubes and to pull back on the concept. So he also added additional changes to make the Skytubes a little bit cooler, I guess, for the kids. And virtually all Chuck E. Cheese locations open under his ownership, and they all had new modernized Skytubes playgrounds. And the slowly declining number of locations with Skytubes all of a sudden just decided to increase again. So thanks to him and his new renovations, as of the 30th of November 2016, he confirmed that the Skytubes were a fully integrated part of the experience of Chuck E. Cheese's again. And his new Skytubes are slightly wider in diameter to make it easier for people to clean, and to reduce the tendency of older children and teenagers getting stuck in the Skytubes during opening hours, So now we're going to move all the way to modern day CEC to see what happened, because they rose, but all of a sudden, as you know today, there's no Skytubes in any location.
Happy birthday!
Cool! Thanks, Mom! Whoa!
Want the coolest birthday ever? Introducing birthday parties with unlimited games at Chuck E. Cheese's. All the tickets you can win. All the games you can play. Birthdays with unlimited games with the new Birthday Star Play Band. Only at Chuck E. Cheese's.
Alright, so now around the modern day CEC, around this time from 2010 all the way up when Rockstar Chuck was a thing, or maybe around after they started adding the Skytubes back. Well, they are mainly removing them nowadays because they need more space because they're mainly probably going to add more games for Chuck E. Cheese to make more money, and also for them to add the funhouse or the bumper cars, because the store needs some more space for more games so CEC can make more money. So most locations are removing them nowadays, but hopefully they will add them back soon, because a lot of people really like the Skytubes, but who knows? Maybe another CEO will come in and maybe he'll add back the Skytubes. And yeah, we don't know. So yeah, we really don't know what's gonna happen in the future. Like, these people probably didn't know that Skytubes were gonna be added back. So yeah, thank you so much for watching today's video. Please give this video a like and please subscribe to me. This video has literally taken almost 2 weeks to edit, and I've been working really hard on this video non-stop. So thank you so much for watching today's video, and as always, goodbye.